Welcome everybody, my name is Linda Nucklus. I'm the CEO at Diversity Arts Australia, or DARTS for short. Our board member Karen Soldatek is caught in bad Sydney traffic, but she's going to say a few words at the end. So I'm just stepping in very briefly to say a few words. I'd like to start by acknowledging the country that we're gathering on tonight, the land of the Wongal of the Eora Nation, and to acknowledge the first people of these lands, and pay respects to elders past and present, and recognise that sovereignty has never been ceded. And we recognise the continuing connection to the land and waters and the ongoing custodianship of the first peoples of this land. For us at Diversity Arts Australia, it doesn't make sense to talk about issues of racism and anti-racism without kind of contextualising them within the colonisation and dispossession of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in Australia, and thinking about our own relationship as non-Anglo or non-white migrants to this process and ongoing process of colonisation. So we seek to be guided in our work by First Peoples leadership, recognising the immense value that First Nations artists and cultural workers create within the arts and cultural landscape. We actually worked on that acknowledgement, that long acknowledgement together for quite a few months as an organisation with our board and with our team. So before I start, I wanted to just let you know that the event is being live streamed on Instagram, and to say hi to all of our Instagram live viewers tonight. I also wanted to let everyone know that the event's being photographed and videoed, so if you don't want to be photographed or videoed, can you please let us know? You can either raise your hand or let one of the team know. We're wearing little things that say team or staff, and what we'll do is we'll put a little yellow dot somewhere around there so that we know and we make sure you're not in the photos and the videos. I wanted to also acknowledge that today is a really important day. Who knows what today is? This is a test. Close, but no.
It's the United Nations International Elimination of Racial Discrimination.
Yes, that's right. It's the International Day on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. And so we intentionally set that as the date for today. And it's a really, really important day to stand in solidarity with people who are dealing with victims of, kind of racial oppression, racial discrimination. And so it really fit, I guess, within the themes of this exhibition. And today we also got a very unpleasant email from someone protesting this exhibition as well. So we thought, yes, we're doing the right thing. This is the right day. So I'm just going to say a few words to thank our awesome project supporters and partners. So starting with Inner West Council, and who supported the artist and allowed us to pay you all, which is also very, very important. Our dear friends and colleagues from the Refugee Art Project, Safta Ahmed, who's out there waiting a little bit, and also Zaina Iali. And if you're interested in their work, have a chat to Safta. And there's some other members of the Refugee Art Project here today. I also wanted to thank the broader partners of the I Am Not a Virus project, of which this exhibition, Rituals of Resistance, is a part. Thanks to the Australia Council for the Arts, Create New South Wales, Creative Victoria, City of Sydney, City of Parramatta, and our organisational partner, Arts and Cultural Exchange. I think it's always really important, and I think quite, shows a kind of fantastic support that this kind of project was supported by those bodies. I also wanted to really congratulate and thank our amazing exhibiting artists, Susan Chen, Fan Dongwang, Benjamin Ho, Beryl La, Jasper Lee-Lindsay, Teresa Lee, Jasmine Poole, NC Quinn, Martyn Reyes, and Wendy Qi Zhang. And I want to also acknowledge this important woman here who's doing our Auslan interpreting today, which means that this video will have a much longer life, particularly, and a broader life for people who are deaf. And this is Jasmine Dendachi. And I wanted to thank, in particular, someone you're about to meet, Carielyn Tunion, who is our producer, creative projects and campaigns at Diversity Arts Australia, for co-producing this exhibition with Kevin Bathman and Reyes, and of course all of the team who you'll meet tonight, Joe and Alexia and Radhika, and along with everyone who's helped bring this exhibition to life. Now I'd like to kind of pass the mic to the awesome moderator, Carielyn Tunion, who's going to introduce herself and the artists. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for being here. Before I introduce myself and get our speakers up on the stage, we would like to share a screening of Beryl's work. We had initially planned for Beryl to come and do a live performance for us, but unfortunately she's had some health issues, so she's very generously allowed us to do a screening instead, so enjoy. Amazing. Maybe the panelists like to come up and join me. Hi, thank you. Also, thank you so much, Lena, for that opening. It was very last minute as well, so thank you so much for that. I also would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Dongwang people whose lands we're gathered tonight. As Lena said, at Diversity Arts, we always contextualize discussions around race, anti-racism, migration through the context of First Nations ongoing resistance, and also that they've got an ongoing sort of resistance to what we fight in a very specific way that is different to, I guess, our particular systemic barriers. So with that in mind, I'd like to welcome you to the Rituals of Resistance Artist Talk here at Thirning Villa. My name is Carielyn, as Lena said, and I'll be your moderator for tonight. As Lena mentioned, today marks the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which in Australia we call Harmony Day. We stand with the Human Rights Commission, who this morning put out a statement on their social media and LinkedIn, saying that this watering down of the elimination of racial discrimination day waters down the very real issues that people face, and also waters down the struggle that got us to the Elimination of Racism Day. So I think we also want to contextualize this exhibition, this event, within that framework, as opposed to a watered down version of it, which is the Harmony Day that we know. For those who are not familiar with Diversity Arts, Diversity Arts Australia is a national voice for ethno-cultural and migrant racial equity in the arts, creative and cultural sectors. We work to support people from migrant and refugee backgrounds, as well as people from culturally and linguistically diverse or culturally and racially marginalised backgrounds. Racialised people or people of colour, however you choose to identify, that's who we work to support. Our aim is to provide systemic support to further equity in the arts and cultural sector and beyond. We also work intersectionally in partnership and in solidarity with other historically marginalised groups and communities. Diversity Arts advocates for an arts and cultural sector that represents the nation's true cultural diversity in ways that speak truth to power and truth to history, as well as our stories and our lived experiences. So the work of Diversity Arts includes research, advocacy, and targeted creative projects and campaigns such as the I'm Not a Virus project. Among our numerous projects, we also facilitate discussions through the Creative Cultural Diversity Network, various seminars and content production like our Colour Cycle podcast, and various mini-films. We also run training and capacity building programs for organisations and practitioners, and we also encourage communities of practice and seek to inspire, connect and support artists, arts workers and creatives to flourish and lead within the sector. The I'm Not a Virus project, which this exhibition is attached to, is a great example of diversity arts work, and it was born out of a need to respond to the visible rise of anti-Asian racism locally and globally during the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdowns and restrictions and everything that went along with it. In the year of 2020, our partner, the Asian Australian Alliance, developed a landmark COVID-19 racism incident survey. So through that, they collected 600, I think it was over 600 reports of anti-Asian racism. Although COVID-19 did spark a new wave of anti-Chinese and anti-Asian racism, this particular brand of prejudice is far from new in Australia. Diversity Arts also received reports of COVID racism through our 3 Lost Work for Creators of Colour during COVID surveys. We responded with I'm Not a Virus Australia, an artist-led project that provided a platform for artists to confront these issues in ways that they wanted to explore. Rituals of Resistance is the 5th exhibition in this project. So for Rituals of Resistance, Diversity Arts, with support from the Inner West Council, commissioned 10 amazing Inner West artists to create new developed works, which you can now see around you. These works span video, sculpture, ceramics, photography, performance, craft and spoken word, each responding to the impacts of heightened anti-Asian racism. I guess through the exhibition we get to bear witness to racism's effects and to the trauma experiences as a reality for Asian and Asian Australian people. We also bear witness to these artists' resistance and strength through the formidable, sometimes humorous and playful counter-narratives that they present in this exhibition through their work. So again, my name is Carielyn, and as I mentioned, I'm going to be your moderator for tonight. Just quickly introduce myself as the producer of creative projects and campaigns at Diversity Arts, part of a small but very nimble and mighty team. I'm also an artist / creative, and I immigrated to so-called Australia as a child in 1997. On my mother's side, I come from a strong lineage of Tagalog and Pangasinan women, and my father connects me to a long song of Dongwang and Hong Kong cultural legacy. So tonight, we're so blessed to be in the company of these three incredible artists, Susan Chen, Dr. Dongwang, and Wendy Qi Zhang. I'll read their bios out, but perhaps a shorter version. Please, you're more than welcome to read their full bios in our room sheets. Susan Chen is a Sydney-based ceramic artist working out of her studio in Sydney's Inner West. Chen's work explores the intersection of art, design, and craft, currently focusing on the use of digital technology in the ceramic art making process. Chen is interested in changing narrative and perception of traditional ceramic making techniques and how they can be applied to a contemporary context. Dongwang, Dr. Fan is an artist specializing in painting for over 30 years. Earning a Doctor of Creative Arts at University of Wollongong, he has exhibited in galleries throughout Australia, including National Gallery of Australia, including as a finalist in the Art Gallery of New South Wales, Solomon and William Prize. Wendy Qi Zhang is a Sydney-based Australian-Chinese artist who works across a variety of mediums and technologies to create immersive experiences, as well as 3D art illustrations. Currently studying a Masters of Interaction Design and Electronic Arts at the University of Sydney. Okay, that is enough for me. Thank you. So I guess this is really going to be led by you guys, but I guess I'll just start with a question. So today is the International Day of the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. Could you tell us what a future without racism would look like to you?
Thanks, Caroline. Thanks everyone to join us today in this conversation, which can feel really difficult but important. So I also work as a designer in the past year. I've been working on a project speaking about with women who have been sharing their experiences of racism, and in that time I've really seen how pervasive, how insidious it is to constantly have your sense of worth being squashed away from you, and it is incredibly important to talk about what does the future look like without it, because I've been sharing these points of view where I can see this bleakness and hopelessness in their lives. So I'm glad that we start on a more positive note of what does the future without racial discrimination look like. So I think about this moment which I had walking up to Punchbowl Mosque. I don't know if people have ever seen this place before. It's an absolute gem, I recommend. And I was reading about how it is an architectural masterpiece out in Western Sydney. I was standing outside, and then they're still under construction. Someone leads me in, and he just says, "I'm one of the owners, just please have a look." And it's stunning. It is this brutalist artwork. I've never been able to see a mosque in this kind of light, in this beautiful shining glimmer with all the concrete. And I had a little moment where I teared up, and he was just like, "Why are you crying?" It's just like, it's just so beautiful to think about a place where we've just heard so much atrocious narratives along what it is to be Muslim, what it is to be different, what it is to be alien, and then I get to see this version of it where we can celebrate it and we can really appreciate the richness that everyone has, and everyone deserves to feel this moment of worth. And another Muslim woman told me that this is what Australian, being a modern Australian is, and this is what I really hope for, that we can keep seeing, returning this narrative of squashing away people's sense of worth and really moving it towards celebrating the richness that everyone has inside of them. I think I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Thank you very much. I think the future of Australia without racism is an ideal society which we all want to live in. And when I came to Australia 30 years ago, I thought Australia is really a multicultural society which is amazing. People of all over the world, even they have conflict in their own country, but they living here. Side by side, they working together. It's like they forgot their home country. They are all called Australia home, and they working as one citizen of Australia. So at that time, I was really happy that I think it's really a very good society. But later on, I started experiencing some of the racism gradually. But that time, I still not feel very strongly because I'm mostly studying in the university, working in the gallery. So those places maybe there's more pride people around. Which, if people ask me whether you've been discriminated against, I often think of it for a while and thought maybe I'm lucky it didn't happen. But later, gradually I find it's getting worse sometimes, especially after the pandemic happens. So everything getting even worse. I've been calling the names on the streets and discriminate and disrespectful. So I think if we can work together to say no to the racism, we can build back Australia, a beautiful country, a lucky country, back again. All of us of different race, different color, can really working together, working in respect for equal opportunity environment, so all the people can happily and live in a harmonious society. So that is the aim and the goal our society should have. And I think we can do it. With Australia, we can really achieve that. But deep down, maybe there's a resistance, maybe there's long-held prejudice to other people, other colors. But if we're working together with the education, working with the government, with the people, and then we can make the racism at least not so strongly happen during the pandemic. So I think our future will be good. And really it's a good society without racism. It's a good society. It's a good society of its people. They can be proud, they can be happy, and also it's good for the economy, for the other aspects of social life. So that's my hope for this future of the Australia without racism.
Thank you. So I'm a little bit more cynical, maybe. I fantasize about a world, future free from racism, and I want that more than anything for my children. But I don't know if it's possible to live in a world free from a future, free from racism, because it's just way too powerful and way too effective a tool that has been used by those in power to kind of demean and kind of target certain groups, certain populations in order to justify whatever their political agendas may be, to kind of create fear and mistrust amongst certain groups, and to so I'm just I don't know, I don't mean to be a bit of a Debbie Downer, but I don't know if I can see that in my lifetime anyway. So I think
you know, we don't have to look very far. Look at, you know, Australia recently with the incredibly ridiculous security pact recently, you know, with the UK and US promising to spend billions of our taxpayer dollars on, you know, nuclear submarines. And, you know, just because of this fear of this, you know, potential China being this emerging potential superpower, you know, those countries in the West, you know, particularly the US, are feeling a bit threatened, a bit nervous, and so they need to, I'm going to be nervous too, they need to, you know, kind of create this narrative about the other and the unknown and why we need to fear them, because it just helps with their agenda. And so you can see just within the last few weeks, the headlines like, you know, war with China imminent within three years, and just really fear-mongering, you know, headlines like that, really, I don't know, I just think really dangerous headlines like that don't help with issues such as racism, especially, you know, right after coming out of a pandemic where Asian Australians experienced an incredible increase in racist, you know, acts, and I long for a future without any racism, without any fear and hatred and discrimination. But I think if that was to happen, ultimately we would have to abolish any notion of you know, colonisation, imperialisation and capitalism, because at the end of the day they are the root causes of racism. So I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, sadly. So yes, I apologise for being so negative, but that's my opinion. Thank you.
I don't know if it's negative or pragmatic or realistic. It is the sad reality, and I think, you know, why this kind of work is so important, what you guys do, is because amidst all of that, amidst the reality, we need space to imagine, and we need space to, I guess, fill our cups so that we can continue resisting and organising and coordinating, because, you know, like as Susan said, like, it's going to take a very multi-pronged approach if anything will actually change. So yeah, we need our artists, we need our writers, we need our creatives to help us imagine alternative futures, because if we don't have anything to envision, it makes it that much harder to fight for it, I guess. So I guess I might lead you into that question then. What are some practical ways that you can disrupt racist narratives around racist narratives through your work?
Yeah, so the question was, how can we disrupt racist narratives?
What are some sort of practical measures or practical things that we can do to disrupt racism or racist attitudes?
Yeah, I think about a particular work which has touched upon me for a while now. So I live in Auburn, Western Sydney, which has the highest, one of the highest numbers of refugees and asylum seekers in Australia, and they, a few years back, ran a multi-interactive art experience which really pulled me in, that I wasn't prepared for what was going to happen. So this was a refugee simulation, which they had a multitude of people who were refugees and asylum seekers themselves to come together and really show you this experience. You come into this room and the first activity that you do is just giving you a really good snapshot of your entire world turned upside down, and within a minute just decide what are the 5 items that you're gonna leave everything else behind in your life that you've ever known. What are the 5 items that you're gonna bring with you? And this is just the beginning of like one of many difficult decisions that you're gonna have to take. And it was quite an intense experience, and what I really saw from that is that there is immense power in empathy. There is immense power in being able to really viscerally understand the struggle that someone else is going through, which I've never necessarily had myself. And yes, I can read these newspaper articles and get a sense of like, oh, it's so terrible about what these things, these numbers and these stats, but when I went through that was a very difficult pill to swallow, that our Australian government, this country which I can feel so proud, that at the same time feel so much shame, in which we're allowing this government and us as a society to dehumanize people in this way. And the stories, even that they showed of children, asylum seekers that they had written, was just alarming. It was very alarming. And then it felt, and it was the first experience, hard experience I had, where we actually had counselors at the end, because they knew how difficult of an experience it would have been, and all of other things which you can come to me, but I don't necessarily want to share it as an open room, in case it's someone has gone through these experiences themselves and don't want to relive right now in their heads. But yeah, having that for myself, that was a really big source of inspiration, where we can actually resist these narratives by making them human again, by bringing in really like stories, and then actually really feeling them. And then from that point on, I just realized like it's not enough to just know about these things, but to actually help people feel these things is really part of this multi-pronged approach. And why I can see it's very important for us to be part of this conversation as well, because you might be able to tell a little bit of a baby compared to some of these like mammoths that I'm sitting next to, who've had decades of work. But they have these tools to really get people to feel what it is to experience these things, and these are really important roles in activism. I'm curious to hear your thoughts with your decades of experience.
Thank you. As an artist, I've been working on, of course, this is a political art, so to respond to racism, we're using political art to make a statement. So also, as an artist, I worked for, I often enter works in break rights, which is religious. So I think it's also about a statement of your beliefs, spirituality. But I also paint pictures of dragon, a Chinese dragon. So it's also a bit political. But this one is particularly, my first time, a response to racism. So I might tell you a little story I experienced right after the pandemic started. So a few months later, I was on the train and to the city. It's not many people on the train, but I saw a white young man come up to the train and start shouting at a tall female Asian lady. So it's kind of the worst verbal violence you can imagine. The words I can't repeat here. It's too difficult to repeat here. And they were shouting. Now the man was shouting at the top of his lungs, and the two ladies are just like that. So it's terrifying. And I was sit on the same train carriage, and there's another middle-aged Australian, looks like office man also in there. I look at the man, I didn't say anything, I was scared of him. And the office man also just looking at his phone, just pretending not seeing that. While two ladies visibly shaking, you can imagine they might be students, they might be citizens, they might be travelers. They were on the train, nothing to do with this man, and this man coming up and stuff. And it's also sexism. The words he's using is like F words, other words as well. So it's both racism and sexism and it's like he's something like it's a man. So later we had a seminar which we were having webinar with the police commissioner in Sydney because there are so many incidents like that. And he said that there's a question, what can we do as an onlooker? If we say something might stop him, but the police commissioner said don't do anything because he might punch you or whatever. So you just report to us later on. But at the time, I didn't report, but I'm sure you said 600, but it multiplies triple, that can be triple that number. But that incident was in my head, can't go away. Then Kevin said that there's a project of this, I'm not a virus. So I thought that, yes, I want to put a submission of work. So this is my, as an artist, my report, a response to this experience I experienced. So here I'll say a little bit more about how, as an artist, how you make your artwork working to make a statement. So in here you can see there's two figures. So you probably know after you hear my experience, you know what that means. The white man is very dominant, very suppressive, and the lady is very vulnerable, and the color, one white, one yellow. So as an artwork, as it to be working, I had to work on the composition. But during that pandemic period, I was working on a series of painting of the body, because at that time, human body, I think our relationship, because of the virus, is upside down. We have to separate, we have to isolate, we can't touch each other. So we fragmented, the whole society fragmented, is in turmoil, in crisis. I was making a body of work of that series, but also I think this one is on top of that. So it's also about racism, also about sexism. So in here, I used composition-wise, I used dancing, you see, in the dancing. So there's two people dancing, but then you through their body language, you can see their relationship, what's happening in there. But there's a third figure there, which is racism and also is the pandemic, the dark force, the evil force with a virus on top of his head. So that figure is really behind all this. The racism and the virus is all behind. It's not, the virus is not the Asian woman. It's not they living here peacefully. It's nothing to do with that virus spreading. So because of that racism and the virus, that young man, he might have some issues in his life he wants to let out. So in some way, he is also a victim. If I say that, if we can understand his situation, where he's coming from. But we also point out, you are wrong that it's not the Asian lady, Asian people you are target. You're also a victim of racism. You became perpetrator of the racist act, sexist act. So if we say that way, if we educate them this way, rather than we say, oh, they born as a racist, or that way, they might be more, can more accept our point of view. So The other thing in here is the flower. The flower is my signature language using in here as a device in painting to enhance the three-dimensionality on the 2D surface. But the flower there's other aspect of it, because the flower, the way I painted it, it can goes into the body, it connects the environment, both bodies. So I said it's like a culture, and the flower is from a traditional Chinese block pattern. But in here I say culture can permeate. We say white culture, Asian culture, black Aboriginal culture, but also we will say that the majority of all these cultures, they have similarity. They are not so different. There are differences, but there are similarities. Because of the culture, we're not living in a vacuum society. We're living side by side. We're always influenced by different culture. Even if we're living in China, we're also influenced by Western culture. There's plenty of Western culture in China. But in here, Australian people from Anglo-Saxon backgrounds, they're also influenced by Asian culture or Aboriginal culture. So I think that bridge, we can bridge them. We don't want to expand the gap between them. We want to work towards bridge them. So if I see a national leader advocating hatred or divisive opinion, I'm very angry with that. I think you, as a national leader, you should advocate harmony, similarity, not try using the difference to divide people into different groups, into different culture. So that is, as an artist, I want to express my idea. So I use this as an example of, I also call this title, I'm not a virus. So I think it's lucky that you had that program and I had that experience. Then we'll work together and have a work like that.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Karen, do you want to repeat the question?
So the question was, what are some practical ways that you can disrupt racist narratives throughout your work? Also just time check, you've got 20 minutes left, so maybe you can just give a little brief and then have one final question.
Sure. We can pass on. Yeah, well, I don't think I have much more to add really, because maybe the fan have pretty much covered everything. But I do think as art is a very powerful vehicle to to create change and personal growth and empathy amongst individuals. So I think also it's a very powerful tool to use to educate people on issues such as racism. I think that's probably the biggest thing, because a lot of the times when I've come across, especially casual racism, I honestly don't believe that those people mean any harm. They're not awful, horrible people. I genuinely believe that it comes from a place of ignorance and not necessarily from malice. And so I think that engaging the community, engaging people in these conversations will allow people to understand and appreciate people, different people within their communities, and just get an idea of how different people live their lives and appreciate them for who they are. Because a lot of the times, like my friends included, they just have no idea. They have absolutely no idea. Oh God, I didn't even think about that. I just thought being a woman was bad enough, but you've got to think about being an Asian woman as well. And so a lot of the times it's pure ignorance, and I'm not saying that's great either, but I don't think it comes from a really dangerous, ill-intended place. So I think that there is room for people to grow and to learn from each other. So I think education through the arts is such a huge and important aspect of trying to put disrupt racism, I guess.
Thank you so much, thank you. And just, I guess as a final question, what has been the significance of being involved in the I Know Rise project been for you as an artist?
I would say it has opened me to this conversation for myself. I'm one of those, I think many people have this natural tendency to just not think about it, push aside the casual racism that you experience around you on a constant basis, whereas this exhibition allowed me to actually open that a little bit and peek inside and feel okay to do so, because I can see other artists will also be wondering what other artists will also sharing that conversation. So my artwork gateway to the center, as you see, that 3D print came out of what I was saying on the news, that a lot of anti-Asian sentiment was happening in these locations of supermarkets, not in mainstream supermarkets. And then I thought about my childhood in which my parents who migrated to Australia from China, their Asian supermarket was such a cornerstone of our culture. It was a portal to everything, so much which I knew about what it meant being Asian, what it meant being Chinese, and my culture. And then thinking about how these spaces have just been fraught with tension instead, where people have had some more casual and some fairly more malicious acts of racism perpetrated onto them. It was very disheartening. So this work gave me the opportunity to have that conversation myself and see what was important to me was just to honor these spaces where I saw was very important and how I felt we need to be able to celebrate them. So just these everyday normal things where I brought some along. If you're not as familiar, this is the classic bottom, the keeping layer, the coffee, which I'll put out to for everyone to share. If you didn't get the joy of this many times, this is your opportunity now. And just letting everyone reframe these spaces where unfortunately the reality is that these have been spaces of tension. These have been spaces where people have just been diminished, their worth, their value as humans, but we can just have a moment where we can remember they're very important as well.
I'll just say that this project is very timely and also it's very important to me and to other artists as well. I have an opportunity working in this project with all these talented artists, and all of the works are very successful, and I think it gives us a voice to say that what we feel about racism. So that voice is very important. Rather than complaining at home behind the door, but in the public we can voice our opposition, and it's called a resistance. So we are part of the resistance. We want to stop this and change this. So this project is really, really important for me, and thanks very much for letting me participate in this project.
So casual racism has been one of those issues that has plagued my life. I've been plagued with my whole life, and I'm sure many of you guys in this room as well. And it's just one of those things that you kind of just think, oh well, it's just what it is. You just got to deal with it. So it's one of those things that I've never really thought too much about because I figured I can't do anything about it. So when this project came along, I don't know, it just really resonated with me, and I felt like I needed to apply for it, so I was quite surprised. I was very grateful that I was commissioned to be part of this project. And it actually allowed me for the first time in my life to confront this issue that I've tried to just push aside for so long because I just didn't think that I was allowed to. I didn't think that I was, I didn't think that I could do it because, out of fear, and also I just didn't think it was possible. So I feel it's been a really cathartic and healing process for me. I think it's helped me kind of get over a lot of issues that I've tried to suppress my whole life, and it's just been really, really rewarding to be able to express these concerns in a visual format. And from like a creative perspective, it's also allowed me, given me the confidence to explore working in other mediums. So last year I created a photographic series of my work using the title of my Mahjong set to kind of express the Australian and Asian cultural experience, cross-cultural experience, in a series of lifestyle photographs. So yeah, it's kind of pushed me outside my comfort zone and challenged me to work with the unknown, and I think just allowed me that space to look into my own cultural heritage and to not be ashamed of it, and to actually take inspiration from it, and to potentially feel excited. I feel like I've got some ideas where I want to take it further for future projects as well. So I feel very, very honoured and grateful to have been included in this. So thank you to everyone involved.
Thanks so much. I love that. I love hearing that. That's amazing. Like to have that renewed, or maybe for the first time, that sense of pride in your cultural heritage. Because it's like I always think like, how many ancestors did their thing for me to be here? So I'm here. Like let's take up space. So yeah, thank you all so much. That was amazing to hear some of the things that inspire you, and some negative, some positive, but I guess that's the way it is. So yeah, thank you all very much. You've been an amazing panel. Yeah, thank you. So we're going to hear now, we're going to get a performance from the amazing Jasper Lee-Lindsay, one of our exhibiting performances. And then after that, we're going to hear from Karen Soldatic, our board member from Thirning Villa. So, thank you so much.
Hello. I'm going to be doing a spoken word poem that I haven't read in a couple of years, so see how this goes. But, yeah. I was born in the east, near tiny houses and smaller streets, where they celebrate in colourful streets, and their gutters have this mysterious stink. Cats and dogs roam freely, with rodents huge and unfriendly. Makes my visits wild, but food's good at least. I was born in the east of the inner west. It's in Newtown. Been all around Sydney, it's always been my home, and yet I've still found people keep asking, so what's your background? It's fine to keep asking, really. It's just interesting to me that I can't just be. But for you, I'll do the maths on my history. I'll say, well, my mum is about 50% Scottish and 50% Italian, and my dad is about 7.25% English, and the rest is Chinese. Oh, you say, I see. Weight off your shoulders, stand at ease, stand at ease. There is the box you can squeeze me into. I see it already makes you feel safer. You already see what I can be blamed for. No, it's fine. For the longest time, I didn't like the ambiguity either. I combed the curls I got from my dad so the flat-haired kids wouldn't look at me weird. They said I looked Mexican, so I took Spanish, thinking if that makes it easier, then por qué no? I still to this day look at my skin and think of the tinge of yellow as sickly. I quickly shut out that thought, but not as quick as it enters. I'm not the same colour as my parents. I'm in a shade of my own. Something else. Something unknown. And so I stand to learn and I fall between the lines and your minds cannot comprehend as if I'm a lie that begs a question. But please, can I not just be... I think of my history all at once. My heritage all at once. My defining moments all at once. And I want to be all at once. But maybe I can't be. Maybe I shouldn't. I don't like the ambiguity, but it is a luxury. The tinge is just that, a tinge. If I give you my percentages, the complexity in my complexion is washed away. White does fade. But if I don't give you the 46.875% I get from my father, my yaya, my mama, I could be on a Milo team. I could be a Wheat Bix kid, have a Vegemite grin. Begin to feel at home in the home I've always known, and it's never stopped being true. If I don't give you a single drop, I am safe. And safe nowadays means a hell of a lot. True blues bleed red, but fear spreads when yellow's in the mix. A cough to clear the throat, hot head on a warm day, sniffle from allergies to you. For you, you are unhealthy. For me, I am un-Australian. And we know COVID is not the only reason for Asian discrimination, but it is the only reason anyone's talking about it in this nation. The signs of assimilation is what's unseen, what's unsaid. Asianness is docility to you, unless we want hostility from you. I shouldn't have to do the math to know where home is. I shouldn't feel safe in my percentages. Feeling I dodged a bullet because my mother's father is Scottish is not a relief, it is repression. Maybe you should do the history lesson for once. It is deep in my makeup, you will not blemish it. Won't get off the lawn when I am a resident. Will not let you take control of my percentages when it all adds up to me, an Australian citizen. Just let me be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Karen.
Hi, my name is Karen Teach and I'm a board member of DARTS Carielyn. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present and recognise any elders with us here today and Indigenous brothers and sisters and colleagues. I also really want to thank the artists. Today you really shared not just about your artwork, but really about the intimacy of your artwork and where that really comes from. And some really deeply moving and the sharing really of also quite hostile interactions that have really led to your artwork and the types of activism that you bring to your artwork. So thank you very much for being so open with us. And thank you also for enabling us to share that more broadly beyond this room. I do have some dignitary requirements that I am not great at. So first of all, I guess I really want to recognise that this is part of I Am Not a Virus project. And this was a key project for diversity arts that emerges with COVID. Because of the implications that it actually had for particularly diversity artists that we work with in the communities that we work with and support, particularly the Chinese and the Southeast Asian community and Central Asian communities that we work with that are artists. Not only were the arts struck down in Australia with the shutdown period, and most of our artists suffered quite incredibly because the lack of income they were able to generate, many of their careers stalled, but also incredible amounts of racism. And so part of this project is really enabling our artists to really consolidate their kinds of experiences and share them with us so we can actually advocate on their behalf to ensure that they don't have to experience that kind of racism or any kind of racism in this country as part of sharing who they are through their artistic work. So I really do want to thank you and acknowledge you for being here with us today and really sharing those details. It's also for us, for Diversity Arts, this kind of art exhibition and the way in which we're engaging with anti-racist politics to promote racial equity in the arts in Australia. This for us is really the kinds of work that we really are trying to promote, not just because of the anti-racist element, but also because we're trying to bring that more broadly into everyday communities and utilising local community hubs and spaces such as this. So these are really important sites to really showcase our community of artists and to really contest the kind of racism that often these buildings that we're standing in actually emerge from practices of settler colonialism and dispossession. So holding and welcoming our artists into these venues is really an act of resistance against that long-standing racist settler colonial practice in Australia of land disposition and just denying the existence of other peoples. So finally, I do need to thank our partners. Linda's smiling at me like, hurry up. So I first of all want to thank our broader partners from I Am Not a Virus is the Asian Australian Alliance, Democracy in Colour, the Australian Council of the Arts, Creative New South Wales, City of Sydney, City of Parramatta and Creative Victoria. So it's quite an encompassing program, and Inner West Council. And Jasmine Donachi, Auslan interpreter, thank you. And I also want to congratulate our artists Susan Chen, Dongwang, Benjamin Ho, Beryl, Jasper Lee-Lindsay, Teresa Lee, Jasmine Poole, NC Quinn, Martyn, Reyes and Wendy Qi and Wendy Qi Zhang. So a very special thanks to also our production team who've been absolutely instrumental in making sure that really our artists' work has been foregrounded around the country. So thank you very much, and I'd like to close the session or hand over to Linda.
No, thank you, Karen. I wasn't giving you the evil stare. I was fascinated. I was hanging on to everything you said. So thank you so much, Karen and Carielyn and all of the artists and speakers. It was incredible. Please stick around and let's keep talking and eating. There's a lot of food. I'm expecting you all to eat a lot. Was there anything, anybody else that I've missed, Carielyn?
No.
Just wanted to thank everyone and
Sorry, we're just going to be doing a couple of very quick little interviews in this area. So we do encourage everyone to please go outside. There's food.
But also look at the work.
Yes.
We'll pull the chairs away. The mahjong work afterwards.
We're going to bring
incredible.
Yeah, we'll sort of bring all the artwork back into the centre of the room, get rid of the chairs and everything, so you can come back in. Beauty.